There's an epidemic spreading across our country, and it's affecting homes right here in Arkansas. Pastor Frank Stewart is here as we talk about the plague of father deficiency. You don't want to miss this. Stay tuned as Arkansas Live starts right now. I'm sure you have seen Frank and Jackie, his wife, on VTN. Their program, Words to Empower, can be seen each week right here on VTN, Sundays at 4 p.m., Wednesdays at 11:30 p.m. Pastor Frank has authored a book, Father Deficiency. I'm really looking forward to this, and here is a copy of the book, and we'll tell you how you can get your copy. It says Father Deficiency, and this bottle of vitamins says Daddy Vitamins. Very interesting book. Frank, it's good to have you here.
It's good to be here.
Thanks for coming on, and we appreciate your program on VTN. You know, this is really, I know it's your heart, but it's really touched me. For years, I've tried to explain to people, I actually feel sorry for our young people today. A lot of the trouble they're getting into and stuff that's going on, in a sense, is not their fault. I know, the Bible says a child's known by his doings, but these children didn't have a chance to start with. They didn't have a father. They weren't trained. They weren't taught. They didn't have any of the basic skills and knowledge and love that they need. So you can't really fault them 100%.
Right.
How did you get into writing this book?
Well, it's a personal story. My father got killed when my mother was about 2 to 3 months pregnant with me. So I'd never seen him, never seen a good picture of him, never heard his voice. And the impact that it had on my life, it was just so astounding when I started looking in the Bible how God already knew this was going to happen. But it is the epidemic that affects and impacts almost every social ill in America. If we could just fix this, talk about it, then we could change so many things in this country.
Oh, that's true. I know. I read in your book where you said that your father died before you were born, so you were born fatherless.
Yes.
And the single parents today, they do their best, but that's not a normal situation. That's not the way God intended it. So, can you define for our viewers what is father deficiency?
Well, it's a phrase that I coined. We know about fatherlessness and that epidemic and the statistics on fatherlessness. But father deficiency goes beyond that. Father deficiency says that he can be there and you still not receive what you need from your father. That deficiency, and we can see with many diseases in this country and in the world, that is a lack of a vitamin, a mineral, or something the body didn't have. But the impact of the father not being there impacts that child physically, emotionally, spiritually, in every way.
So it's not just absentee fathers, not in the home, but it's fathers that are not fulfilling. Either they can't or they won't.
Absolutely, and that makes a huge difference. The problem is there's no statistics on the father deficiency, because he can be there and being a pastor for 28 years, you see the impact if he's, abusive or if he's an alcoholic, what it does to the children. But just the statistics of fatherlessness, and my book is trying to bring awareness to if he's not there. When you look at when the father's not there, that youth or that child, 20 times more likely, that's 20 times the average. Now, many times people think it's just a biblical thing, but when you look at the statistics from the Census Bureau, United States government, 20 times more likely to have behavior problem when the father's not there. Anytime God meant for you to have something in your life and it's taken from you, there are incredible consequences. So the book is trying to bring awareness, because I encounter many people that said it doesn't matter. It's I turned out all right. I turned out all right, didn't have a father, but the amount of conflict and everything that went on, I was suicidal. I was all these statistics, I experienced that. When the FBI says that that the number one predictor of crime in America is not race, it's not poverty, it's the lack of a father. Wow. So when you look at that and we see this epidemic, if we could just touch that, I mean, we could change so many things.
Okay, how do we touch that? I'm on board. I know everything you're saying is true. How do we get that into the culture? How are we going to do it? We've got to get somebody's attention.
Right.
The schools, the
absolutely
government. Somebody's got to understand this. If you want to solve the problem that we have, you're going to have to start. You have to go back further than just the child that's in trouble.
Right. And see, what we're doing, we're medicating symptoms.
Yes.
We're focusing on symptoms, but to get to the root cause, the first thing is awareness. You have to realize that if he's not there, it is an impact on that child's life. Yeah. We live in a society today that want to make a father optional. He's not optional. Right. This is something God meant for every child to have, a good, godly father. Yeah. When he's not there, you know, all hell breaks loose in that child's life. I've lived this. You know, 5 times more likely to commit suicide. You know, when you look at these statistics, it should bring awareness, but most people just blow it off. It's like, oh, I'm all right, it didn't matter.
Yeah. Or they toughen up, but they've got issues. I read somewhere where Hallmark cards decided they wanted to be a blessing to inmates in a prison. So on Mother's Day, they said, we will give you as many cards as the prison wants for the inmates to send cards to their mother. Oh, they were overwhelmed.
Right.
Hundreds of thousands were. So they thought, well, we'll do the same thing on Father's Day.
Right.
Not one prisoner requested a card for their father.
You know, that's sad, but it's so true. I grew up in a generation that's so much worse now that the young men I hung around with, they was been raised by grandparents or a grandmother. They've been raised by maybe a stepfather, but most of them didn't have fathers in the home. But I think that our society must understand when he's not there, the impact that he has on that child's life. I was looking at a study, over 1 million children in Florida. They did a study over 1 million children that are born. And the ones born that didn't have father involvement, the babies weighed less. They were more, premature, 4 times more likely to die in the first 28 days when the father wasn't involved. There are some things going on that God is trying to tell us.
This is a biblical thing. It's not just a sociological thing. It's a biblical thing.
Yes.
And we've got to fix that. How long did it take you to write the book?
Well, it took maybe a couple of months, but there was a problem with writing the book because I'm the last of 6 children. So my fear was how it's going to impact the other 5.
Yeah.
So I struggled with that, and because it was the way my father died, and I struggled with that. We didn't put pictures up.
Yeah.
No pictures up because it was like we want to forget what happened. Yeah. Well, it robbed me. My other siblings were able to go to a funeral and grieved, and it dawned on me that I was grieving my whole life. I cried for the first time on Father's Day. I was pastoring. I was in my 30s before I came to a point of dealing with it because I was in denial.
Yeah.
Denial was my medication, but inside I was dying. Even Jesus needed that father support. And when you look at that, in the book, chapter 3, I talk about the 3 A's. That's acknowledgement, acceptance, and approval. When Jesus, you see in his life, even at his baptism, God said, "This is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased."
Yeah.
This is my beloved son. So he acknowledges him, beloved, he accepts him unconditionally.
Yeah.
So when he says that, and then here comes that approval, in whom.
He affirms it. Yeah.
Yes. But to go through life and never be acknowledged by your father, the kind of chaos it caused on the inside is just unbelievable.
And a man needs that.
Absolutely.
And the fathers today need to know this so you don't reproduce
right.
the same thing. Now, you have children?
Yes, I'm 4.
How did you change this with your family, you and Jackie?
Yeah, well, I put my office in the house. I was always there. But this is the thing about it. They don't see it. Now they do because they have friends. But growing up, they didn't see it as a big deal. I was always there.
Yeah.
Even when I wrote the book, they was like, But as they began to go through life and to marry and to get involved with other people, they begin to say, wow, what I took for granted.
Yeah.
Now I see how it impacts other my siblings, not siblings, but other classmates.
Right.
They begin to see it because I lived it.
Yes, sir.
But it's hard to tell your mother that what you're going through and somebody that's working 2 jobs, that everything they're doing is still not enough. So I just held it inside.
I had a wonderful family, a wonderful father and a mother. But during the war, World War II, my mother and I lived with her parents because Daddy was overseas in the war.
Right.
Okay. I saw a picture of him beside the bed every night. And she said, now this is Daddy, he's coming home, blah, blah, blah. Bless his heart, I know this hurt him. When he came home, he walked in the bedroom. I'm in bed. And Mama says, Bubba, that's what she called me. She says, Bubba, here's your daddy. And I looked at him, and I looked at the picture, and I looked at him, and I said, no, that's my daddy. Oh, man. Because I hadn't seen him,
Right.
But then, of course, after the war, he was home, and he was a great dad. Okay, we have some graphics up for statistics. And can we put that up now? Here's the fatherless homes. I'm going to let you talk over this, Frank. 90%.
Yes. Well, it's 90% of all homeless and runaway youth. Now, that's 30 times above the average. Now, this is what, sometimes I get accused of this is just Bible talk. No, these are proven statistics. God told us, and what statistics do, they verify what God has said. But 32 times above the average to run away because the father's not there. That's saying something to us. We can't deny that. 85% of children who show behavior disorders, that's 20 times above the average. 20 times. And I was a runaway. I fell in that category of, acting out in school and doing that, trying to get attention. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was missing something. I was hurting on the inside.
Yeah.
And I didn't know I couldn't put my finger on what is going on. Sometimes I would even ask myself, what is going on with you? Why are you doing this? But I was missing something. And even at graduation, and I didn't know why I was happy and then depressed. I was depressed because he wasn't there.
Yeah.
So you kind of go through that as you're living life when the father's not there.
And 75% of adolescent patients in chemical abuse centers are from fatherless homes.
Yes, 10 times above the average.
So we could solve a lot of problems just by solving the father deficiency.
Right.
I'd like to stop right here if we can put up the information. I'll do this again before we end the broadcast. But here's a copy of Frank's book, Father Deficiency. And on the front is this picture of Daddy Vitamins. It's really interesting and so powerful. And if you'd like a copy of it, just get the information that's on the screen, and you can order your copy. Let's go on here. How I have a great testimony here, but how does your father deficiency impact your concept of God?
Oh, Lord. It was a point, even though being raised in the church, I became an atheist. Because whenever you use a word, there's a picture with it. If you went back 2,000 or 3,000 years and you told somebody about an airplane, they wouldn't know what you're talking about because every word has a picture.
Right.
And our brain pulls it up so fast, we don't even realize it. So when you say a word, it pulls up everything you've experienced. It try to pull up a picture. Well, I had nothing. So now I'm trying to pray saying, Our Father.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I can see that.
That whole concept of God. And then, I got into, well, why well, how come I couldn't have a father like everybody else? Eventually I got to that point, and God is the most blamed person in the universe.
Oh, yeah.
So eventually you're going to get to God, and I got to God, and I kind of turned my back on Christianity. But, it really impacts how you view God, because when you say our Father, you pull up everything you've known about a father. So it's hard to see God in the proper light when you hadn't had that good father in the home, godly father in the home.
Yeah. Okay. Here's the big question. How do we fix father deficiency?
The first thing, my book is focused on awareness. Once we get the awareness done, then you got to have somebody to step in. You got to have a mentor. The church has to do more. In the book, I make a suggestion about, since we know that this is going to be missing in that child's life, let's be proactive. Let's come up with some kind of system, whatever, in elementary school. Not pulling the children out, but let's do something since we know. Any disease, if you look at all these symptoms that we see in the statistics, to be proactive, we would start doing something. When that father's not there, that child is going to have some problems. That is how we're created. I think the book is trying to get people to buy into it. It's got suggestions about the mentor, and you need a male figure in that child's life.
Okay, that answers the question as to how do we minister to and reach those that are already in this situation. Finding a substitute,
right?
A mentor,
yes.
Whether it's an athlete or a minister, pastor like yourself. I assume the absentee father or the father deficiency affects daughters as well as
Absolutely.
sons, but it affects sons more because the son needs the father, but it also affects the girls too because they
yes.
need that father figure. But I want to go past that. I'm assuming that it could take as long as a generation.
Yes.
We've got to start raising somewhere. We've got to get the young men that are going to be fathers to change the way they think.
Right.
Because this attitude of you can biologically impregnate a woman and she can have a child, and biologically that's your child. But if you don't marry the mother, if you're not married to the mother, and you're not on the scene every day for that child's life, you're not a father.
Right.
You're just a reproductive individual entity. But to be a father, how do we change? Because we want to get our young men trained differently, to think differently, to take responsibility, not to abandon, not to just, have a sexual relationship with a woman, but that teach them that comes after marriage. And how do we fix that? That's going to be a nationwide challenge.
And once people buy into it, the Bible says my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Once they buy into it, we start teaching them. Because many of these fathers that are, that have children, young men, they themselves were victims.
Right.
So we have to help them to understand, how did you feel?
That's right.
And why would you want to do anyone else like that? It's education. It's talking to them. It's telling them. Because in the society we live in now, you have walking pornography.
Yeah.
It's not just where you can go to a computer or something. It's everywhere. So the level of temptation. So we got to teach them and talk to them that this is not a toy.
Right.
We're not talking about a toy. We're talking about something that God created.
Right.
And help them understand that, because many of them understand the pain, and many times they're doing the same thing. In the book, we talk about worshiping your father's idol. And when you look at the Old Testament, you see that many of the king's sons, when whatever idol the father worshiped, they worship.
Right.
So we talk about worshiping your father's idol and how to get out of that, how to tear down that idol, as Gideon did. Yeah. Gideon tore down his father's idol. And we have to teach them how to tear that idol down and switch from that, and how to be a good father, Be something. Now, this is the problem, to be something you've never seen. So we got to have somebody to teach them. And I talk about this so much at church. I mean, I talk about this so much at our church. That's part of the ministry.
Yeah, that is your specialty.
But the Bible says that God says in the last verse in the Old Testament, Malachi, if we don't turn the hearts of the fathers to their children, and the hearts of the children to their fathers, he said he's going to smite the earth with a curse. When that doesn't happen, we're living under a curse.
Yeah.
But if we could just fix that, it would turn the tides in so many areas. On the back of the book, it's the $100 billion man. And what that symbolizes, in 2008, a couple of researchers, they looked at how much it was costing the country not having fathers in home. That's 2008.
Yeah.
That's 2008. It was over $100 billion.
Wow.
Can you imagine where it is today? The thing that we have to get fathers to understand, and we created a song. We got a song that we created, my son and one of Minister Smith at our church, to let fathers know you are irreplaceable in the life of that child. Irreplaceable. So just getting the word out, talking and educating, helping them to understand, and getting in touch with their own pain.
Yeah. Our son was the children's minister in our ministry when we first started. Actually, he did the children and the youth, and, because I asked him to do it. He did everything that he could. And he told me one day, he said, Dad, he said, all children is adults in little bodies. And he said, you've got to feed them. You've got to train them. And he said, and sometimes the youth, the teenagers, they need more attention than the children.
Absolutely.
And so he's had a history of being able to teach and train. And but I wanted to go back to one more thing, and I'm going to tell the folks again how they can get their copy of this book. Grandparents.
Oh, yeah.
I had both sets of grandparents, great role models, everything. And I look back on my life now, and I'm thinking, I really was blessed.
Yes.
Mother, father, and their parents, grandparents. And I grew up with them. I knew my grandparents on both sides. My grandfather, Chauvin, he was born in 1886. And he didn't die. He died in an accident. He didn't die of old age. He didn't die till I was 7 years old.
Wow.
So I used to spend a lot of time with him. He lived on a farm, plowed with a mule. And my other grandfather, born down in Louisiana, he was in 1889. And I used to go over to his house and talk to him. And I said, Grandfather, what'd you do when you got home from school? Did you watch TV? Well, they didn't have electricity.
Right.
And I said, did your daddy let you ride the mule? He said, no, sir. He said, that mule was for plowing. He said, it wouldn't let us ride that mule. I said, how'd you get to school? He said, we walked.
Right.
Grandmother said. So I learned that generation. Then my father's generation, which Tom Brokaw said was the greatest generation. And I had a great history of that. And it's hard for me sometimes to see, because you could see it better because you've been there. It's hard for me to see why the young people have these challenges because I've never been there.
Right.
But I have it in my heart, in my spirit. I know that this is what it's going to take to fix the father deficiency. And you can be a part of this. If you're a pastor, if you're a father, if you're you need to get a copy of this book. Just get the information that's on the screen. You can call the number. You can go online, and the book is available, and it's called Father Deficiency. And on the front, I love this vitamin jar here. It says Daddy Vitamins.
Yes.
And unfortunately, you can't take Daddy Vitamins out of a bottle.
Right.
But another thing that we want to emphasize, and we're running out of time, is this is a biblical concept. It's just as real as salvation, healing, deliverance. Proverbs chapter 1 says, my son, hear the instruction of your father, and forsake not the law of your mother. They, father and mother, instruction and law, shall be an ornament of grace unto your head and chains about your neck. He's talking about gold chains. He's not talking about
Right.
bondage chains. He's talking
Right.
about the beauty, the glory. So this is a biblical mandate, and pastors and youth ministers, anybody, you've got to establish this in the young people. You'll save their life. Anything else you'd like to add?
When you said about grandparents, and there's a chapter about grandparents in there, their vital role, because they're able to see at least two generations. And sometimes as parents, we forget the way we were, where the grandparents got the comparison. But actually, the book came from 2 Timothy chapter 1, where Paul is talking to Timothy, and he mentions his mother and his grandmother.
Mother, that's right.
Both of them. Now, we know his father was alive from the book of Acts, but he was not godly. He was not saved. But he mentions the mother and the grandmother in a patriarchal society. And what he was saying, that the fathers had been missing for generations. Mm-hmm. And that's what is happening in our day and time. And God has in his word, there's a promise that is given when we help the fatherless, that what we touch will prosper. It's over 40 times the Lord talks about this fatherless. He knew what was getting ready to happen. And he put it in such a category where he says to us, pure religion and undefiled before God. He puts in that to visit the fatherless.
The fatherless, yep.
He knew what was going on. He knew this day was going to come. So we have to go back to the Word of God. And the statistics only tell us that what God said is true.
Yeah. I thank you so much for coming on and sharing this with us. And I want to encourage everybody, if you live in Conway, you can attend the church. There are two locations, Agape Community Temple of Servants, one location in Conway, the other one in North Little Rock. And there's the website, actsministriesonline.org. Email is actsorg@sbcglobal.net. You can contact the church. You can attend the church. Get involved. Get your copy of the book. And I believe it will help you tremendously. And also encourage you to watch the Stewart's program, Words to Empower, every Sunday at 4 p.m. and then Wednesday at 11:30 p.m. Tell your friends and neighbors. Thank you so much for being here, Frank.
Thank you for having me.
Nice to meet you.
God bless you.
This episode's available to watch online. If you want to log on to vtntv.com, click on Watch on Demand. VTN's also available to watch 24/7 via live stream. Click on vtntv.com and hit live stream. Remember, Jesus is Lord of Arkansas and where you're watching too.
Send your questions, comments, and testimonies to Happy Caldwell at Post Office Box 26207, Little Rock, Arkansas 72221, or email Happy Caldwell at vtntv.com. You can follow VTN on Facebook at VTN Your Arkansas Christian Connection, and follow Happy Caldwell on Twitter at Happy_Caldwell.